I'm here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Alexander, let's take a look at Russian President Vladimir Putin speaking at the 5th International Arctic Forum in St. Petersburg. We're going to play the video of Putin's comments. I think these are his first comments about the Trump Russiagate hoax that has now ended. The first comments that he's given now that the Mueller report has been completed and Barr gave his summary. So as always, it's really interesting to hear Vladimir Putin's take on what happened. Well, it should be interesting because after all, Vladimir Putin does control Donald Trump and the United States democracy. So it's always great to hear from the puppet master himself. I'm joking, guys. I'm joking. And before you get into what Putin said, when he was asked the question as to what he feels about the end of the Russiagate hoax, towards the end of Putin's comment, he said something that I thought pretty much summed up a lot of what I feel about the entire 2 to 3 year ordeal that we've all been through. Probably a lot of what you feel as well. Mm-hmm. And the question was posed to Putin towards the end of the segment. Are you happy for Trump now that it's over? And Putin says, I quote, "It was a dark chapter in American history, and no one wants to see it come back." Alexander, what do you make of Russian President Vladimir Putin's comments with regards to the Russia Mueller report?
Well, first of all, as you absolutely rightly say, Putin is the person who, along with Donald Trump, was supposed to be the great giant co-conspirator in this thing. He and Trump supposedly were working together. Putin as the puppet master and controller, Donald Trump as his spy or asset or whatever nonsense.
Manchurian candidate.
Manchurian candidate. And let's not forget, I mean, right up to the Helsinki summit, which happened last year, when Putin and Trump met. I mean, there were crazy stories that, you know, when they met in private, because they did for a brief time, with just stenographers present, Putin was supposedly giving Trump instructions, and the Democrats were running around asking to see the stenographer's notes of that meeting. And whenever the two men have had any kind of contact with each other, it's always been suggested that Putin is there giving some kind of coded messages to Donald Trump. Anyway, today, he finally had the opportunity to respond, and he responded in his usual pithy way. He said that the Mueller report was a mountain which had produced a mouse. He's made it absolutely clear that the Russians did not interfere in the election. He says he's made it absolutely clear that they were not involved in any kind of collusion with Donald Trump in any way at all, or with his campaign. He poured cold water on any suggestion that the Russians would be supporting any particular candidate in the 2020 elections. But, and I think you're absolutely right, the really key point that he made was the last one, that this was a very, very dark chapter in American politics and modern American history. Because what happened over the Russiagate scandal, and I think we should now call it a scandal, by the way, as well as a hoax, because it is a massive scandal that has been going on now for 3 years, is that the United States has been drawn into the most unbearable, impossible McCarthyite inquisition, only far worse, in my opinion, than anything McCarthy was involved in, because at least McCarthy did identify, I mean, there really were Russian spies in the United States at that time, whereas this collusion thing, right from the start, was absolute nonsense. And as Putin correctly says, this is a dark chapter because lives were destroyed, people have been convicted of various process crimes. Other people have been, like Carter Page and Papadopoulos, and all sorts of people, probably Donald Trump himself, have been placed under surveillance. There's been a massive campaign to police the internet now and to crush and suppress alternative voices and dissenting voices. And in the midst of all of this hysteria, Russian-American relations have experienced disastrous damage, so that where there was a genuine possibility when Donald Trump was elected president for there to be some sort of improvement, because that was the policy that Donald Trump was elected on, instead we have seen the reverse. So Putin, drawing on the huge experience Russians have with this kind of witch craze and hysteria, and any Russian listening to these comments will inevitably remember the kind of massive campaign against enemies that got out of control in Russia in the 1930s at the time of the Stalinist terror. And that is essentially what he is comparing it to. He's not saying, obviously, that people have been rounded up and shot in their hundreds of thousands as they were then. But in terms of the climate of hysteria and the climate of paranoia and the climate of fear, because a lot of people have been frightened of saying what they really think, the parallels that he is essentially making are inevitable ones.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's very much a cautionary tale that Putin is putting out there to all Americans. It really was a 2 to 3 year dark time. And he's pretty much saying it's time to put an end to it. And time,
Indeed.
time to look to the future. He even says it's time to rally around your president. Indeed.
In fact, what he's basically saying is you had this 3 years of madness. Put it behind you and never go back there again. Now conduct your politics in a proper, orderly way, as your constitution and your political system requires you to do. It is a very, very common sort of comment coming from Putin. He likes to make these sort of points, pointing out his rationality and calmness and setting that against the hysteria of others. But I think anybody looking at this objectively would agree that he's making a very powerful point.
Very powerful point. Let's get to it. Putin's reply to the question about the Mueller investigation winding down is around 4 minutes long. Take a look at the video. Let us know what you think of it in the comments down below. Of course, go to the Duran shop, buy a t-shirt, donate to us on PayPal and Patreon. It really helps us out a lot. Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of the Duran. Everybody, let's take a look at Putin's comments about the Robert Mueller investigation wrapping up.
Do you think that Trump will be better able to deliver on his promise of good relations with Russia? And are you expecting an invitation to the White House this year?
Да, вы знаете, у нас есть такая хорошая книга «12 стульев» называется. Вот. И там есть такая фраза. Приезжайте в гости, старушка-мама будет очень рада, но адреса не оставил. Вот, но ситуация должна созреть. Мы изначально говорили, что вот эта пресловутая комиссия господина Мюллера ничего не найдет, потому что лучше нас этого никто не знает. Россия не вмешивалась ни в какие выборы в Соединенных Штатах. Это первое. А второе, не было никакого сговора, которого господин Мюллер искал, между Трампом и Россией. Мы не были знакомы с господином Трампом. Да, он приезжал в Москву, но как бизнесмен, и, откровенно говоря, это не было событием для нас. Это полный бред, рассчитанный исключительно на внутреннюю аудиторию и используемый во внутриполитической борьбе в самих Соединенных Штатах. Значит, поэтому то, что она закончит так, как гора родила мышь, что называется, ну, это было для нас понятно и заранее. Я все время вам об этом говорил. Но вот сейчас это произошло. Но от этого ситуация внутриполитическая в США легче не стала. Какие-то новые поводы ищут для атак на президента Трампа. Мне кажется, что, уж извините, что я так ухожу в сторону, действительно, тоже. Мне кажется, что вот это какой-то элемент кризиса в самой политической системе в США. Потому что ведь, смотрите, что происходит. Те группы, которые атакуют законно избранного президента, они не, ведь что это такое? Они не соглашаются с выбором американского народа. Обнуляют результаты. Это и есть кризис политической системы. Такого раньше в истории США мы никогда не видели. Да, идет острая предвыборная борьба, но если кандидат побеждает, то тогда с этим все соглашаются. Всегда так было. И объединяются вокруг главы государства для реализации общенациональных задач. Ничего подобного сейчас мы в Штатах не видим. Наоборот, раскол продолжается. И они, по сути, понимаете, что произошло? Они поставили свои групповые или партийные интересы выше общенациональных. Вот что произошло. Я совершенно не защищаю сейчас президента Трампа. У нас полно с ним разногласий. При его администрации введено огромное количество санкций против России. С чем, конечно, мы не соглашаемся, не согласимся никогда, и считаем, что это контрпродуктивно. Но если будет возобновлен диалог между США и Россией, полноценный, равноправный, в том числе по вопросам, которые представляют интересы и для нас, и для всего человечества, по разоруженческой проблематике, мы будем этому только рады, мы к этому готовы.
But President Trump says he feels vindicated by the Mueller report. President Putin, on a personal level, do you, after everything that's happened, President Trump calls it a witch hunt, after everything that's happened, do you feel happy for him on a personal level at the outcome of the Mueller report?
Президенту Трампу виднее. Что такое охота на ведьм, мы знаем из истории Соединенных Штатов. Это черная страница в американской истории. Не хотелось бы, чтобы она когда-то повторялась.